The darkness of space stretched endlessly around the massive Kethfer warship. Commander Zekthar stood on the bridge, his 8-foot frame casting long shadows across the metal floor. His black shell gleamed under the dim lights, and his arms moved with deadly precision as he checked the weapon systems. Sharp claws clicked against the control panels as he worked. For 3,000 years, the Kethfer Empire had ruled the galaxy. No species could match their strength. No army could defeat their warriors. Their home planet Nethka had made them into perfect killing machines. The acid rain that fell there would melt most aliens in seconds. The gravity was so strong it would crush weaker beings. The plants themselves were predators that could tear apart anything that moved. Every Kethfer child learned to fight before they could walk properly. They grew up knowing they were the apex predators of the universe. Thick shells could stop laser fire. Their claws could cut through starship holes. Their reflexes were faster than most species could even see. Death followed wherever they went. Zekthar had personally conquered 47 worlds. Each victory had been swift and complete. Most species surrendered after seeing what the Kethfer could do. Those who fought back usually died within days. The galaxy feared them, and that fear kept the peace. But today brought something new. Commander called out his second-in-command, a scarred warrior named Kothman. "We have received the scout reports from the Outer Rim." Zekthar turned his massive head toward the younger warrior. "What have they found? A new species, Commander?" "They call themselves humans. Their world is in a small system, unremarkable by our standards. Initial scans show it as another death world, but nothing compared to the challenges of our territories." The commander walked closer to examine the data on the main screen. The planet appeared blue and white from space, with large bodies of water and green landmasses. It looked almost peaceful compared to the volcanic hellscapes and poison atmospheres. Of most death worlds they knew. "What of the inhabitants?" Zekthar asked. "Soft creatures, Commander. No natural armor. No claws or fangs. They appear to walk on only 2 legs and have no obvious weapons built into their bodies. Our scouts estimate they would be very easy to defeat." Zekthar studied the images of these humans. They did look weak. Their skin appeared thin and easily damaged. They were much smaller than Kethfer warriors. Their limbs looked fragile. Most strange of all, they seemed to have no protective shell or scales. How did they survive on a death world looking like that? He wondered aloud. "Unknown, Commander. Perhaps their world is not as dangerous as our sensors indicate. The gravity is lighter than most worlds we know. The atmosphere appears breathable to many species. Maybe it only seems like a death world because of some minor hazards." The commander nodded slowly. It made sense. These humans probably lived on one of those barely dangerous worlds that some species called death worlds, just because they had a few storms or wild animals. Real death worlds, like Nethka, would kill such weak creatures in moments. Meanwhile, far across space, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the UES Defiance. He was a tall man, with graying hair and tired eyes. 20 years of military service had taught him to stay alert even during quiet patrols. Today felt different somehow, though he could not explain why. "Captain," called Dr. Lisa Park from her station. She was the ship's expert on alien languages and cultures. "I'm picking up some strange signals from beyond Jupiter. They don't match." "Any known communication patterns?" Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Any idea what they are?" "Not yet, sir. Patterns are complex but regular. Definitely artificial. Someone is talking out there, but not to us." The captain felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Radio telescopes had searched for signals for decades without success. If Dr. Park was right, that search had finally ended. "Can you decode any of it?" he asked. "I'm trying, Captain. Give me some time." Morrison activated the ship's communication system. "All stations, this is the captain. Set alert condition yellow. We may have made contact with an alien civilization. All departments report readiness status." The bridge became busy with activity. Officers checked their stations and prepared for whatever might come next. The EU's Defiance was one of Earth's newest ships. But Morrison knew human technology was still primitive compared to what an advanced alien race might possess. Dr. Park worked frantically at her console, running the signals. Through every decoding program she had, slowly patterns began to emerge. Numbers, coordinates, what looked like tactical information. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think these might be military communications. Are you sure?" The structure matches military communication patterns from Earth. Short, efficient, lots of numerical data. If I'm right, there's a fleet of alien warships heading toward our solar system. Morrison felt his blood turn cold. Humanity's first contact with aliens might not be the peaceful meeting that scientists had always hoped for. Back on the Kethvar flagship, Commander Zekthar received new orders from the Empire. The conquest of this human world would be a simple training exercise for younger warriors. High Command expected the operation to last no more than a few days. "How many ships shall we take, Commander?" asked Kothman. "3 should be more than enough," Zekthar replied. "We do not want to waste resources on such weak prey. This will be good practice for warriors who have not yet tasted real battle." The Kethvar fleet moved through space toward Earth. Their ships were massive, dark shapes that blocked out stars as they passed. Weapon ports lined their hulls like the eyes of predators. Inside, warriors sharpened their claws and checked their eye. Armor. They sang ancient war songs that spoke of glorious death and honorable victory. None of them expected to find either against the humans on Earth. Emergency meetings were taking place in government buildings around the world. The alien signals had been confirmed by multiple sources. Long-range sensors showed 3 large objects moving toward the solar system at incredible speed. President Collins addressed the United Nations Security Council via emergency broadcast. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing humanity's greatest challenge. We do not know what these aliens want, but we must assume the worst and prepare for war." Military bases around the world went to full alert. The small Earth Defense Force prepared for battle, though everyone knew their weapons were designed to fight other humans, not advanced aliens. Still, they would do their duty. Captain Morrison received orders to take the Defiance to the outer system and gather intelligence on the approaching ships. It was a dangerous mission. Someone had to find out what humanity was facing. As his ship moved toward Jupiter, Morrison thought about his wife and daughter back on Earth. He had joined the military to protect them and everyone else on the planet. Now that protection would be tested against an enemy unlike anything humans had ever faced. The Kethvar. Ships decloaked near Jupiter's moons, their massive forms suddenly visible to human sensors. Morrison stared at the alien vessels in amazement and terror. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. They looked like mechanical monsters from nightmares, covered in weapons and armor. Dr. Park, he said quietly, "Send a message to Earth. Tell them we have 3 hostile alien warships in the outer system. Each one could probably destroy our entire fleet." "What are your orders, Captain?" asked his first officer. Morrison looked at the alien ships and made the decision that would change everything. "We intercept them. If they want to reach Earth, they'll have to go through us first." The war was about to begin. The first battle happened near Mars. Captain Jake Morrison watched the Kethvar ships approach on his main screen. They moved slowly, like predators who knew their prey could not escape. The alien vessels were twice the size of any human ship and covered with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "All ships, this is Morrison," he spoke into his communicator. "Remember your training. Hit them fast and get out. Do not try to fight them directly." The human fleet consisted of 12 ships, all much smaller than the alien warships. The U's, Guardian, commanded by Captain Beth Turner, moved into position alongside Morrison's Defiance. Behind them came 10 more vessels, carrying the best crews Earth could provide. Commander Zekthar observed the human ships with amusement. They looked like toys compared to his massive warships. Weapons were primitive projectile systems and basic energy beams. Against Kethvar armor, such weapons would be useless. "Shall we destroy them quickly, Commander?" asked Kothman. "Let them fire first," Zekthar replied. "I want to see what these humans think they can accomplish." The battle began when Morrison gave the order to attack. Human missiles streaked toward the alien ships, followed by laser beams and plasma bolts. The weapons struck the Kethver vessels and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. When the light faded, the alien ships were undamaged. "Their armor's too strong," reported Morrison's weapons officer. "Our attacks are not even scratching them." The Kethver response was swift and terrible. Energy beams as thick as tree trunks shot out from their ships. The first blast struck the UES Ranger, cutting the human vessel completely in half. The second beam destroyed the UES Phoenix in a ball of fire. 200 human lives ended in seconds. "All ships scatter," Morrison ordered. "Use hit-and-run tactics." But the Kethver ships were faster than they looked. Within minutes, 4 more human vessels were destroyed. The survivors tried to retreat, but the aliens followed them like hunting wolves. The UES Guardian took a direct hit that knocked out its engines. Captain Turner knew her ship was doomed, but she would not give up without a fight. "Prepare for boarding," she told her crew. "They will come for us next." Kethver transport ships attached to the Guardian's hull like parasites. Cutting tools began slicing through the metal walls. Soon, holes appeared in the ship's sides, and alien warriors poured through. Lieutenant Paul Collins was waiting for them. Collins was a young officer from Texas who had joined the military to see the stars. He never expected to die fighting aliens, but he was ready to do his duty. When the first Kethver warrior stepped through the breach, Collins opened fire with his assault rifle. The bullets bounced off the alien shell. Like raindrops, the Kethver warrior looked at Collins with what might have been amusement. It raced. One massive arm and claws longer than knives shot out from its hand. With one quick movement, it slashed across Collins' chest and left arm. Collins screamed as his arm was nearly cut off. Blood poured from the wound, and his vision began to blur. Any normal person would have fallen down and died. But Collins was not finished fighting. He pulled a grenade from his belt and held it tight. As the Kethver warrior stepped closer for the killing blow, Collins smiled through his pain. "Welcome to Earth," he whispered, and pulled the pin. The explosion killed Collins instantly. It also killed the Kethver warrior and 2 others behind it. The aliens had expected quick surrender, not soldiers who would die to take enemies with. Them in another part of the ship, Sergeant Amy Rodriguez was having her own battle. Rodriguez was a small woman from California who had grown up in a tough neighborhood. She knew how to fight dirty, and now she used every trick she had learned. When 3 Kethver warriors cornered her squad in the ship's armory, Rodriguez watched her friends die one by one. Private Johnson was cut down trying to reload his weapon. Corporal Smith lasted longer, using a plasma torch as a sword. But the aliens were too strong and too fast. Soon Rodriguez was alone, surrounded by alien killers who expected her to surrender. Instead, she grabbed a welding tool and sprayed burning metal into the eyes of the nearest warrior. While it screamed and clawed at its face, she rolled between its legs and came up behind another alien. She jammed an electrical cable into the joint of its armor, sending thousands of volts through its body. The Kethver had never seen anything like this. This tiny human was fighting like a cornered animal, using weapons that should not have been dangerous to them. Rodriguez turned the ship's corridors into a maze of traps and ambushes. She used emergency foam to blind the aliens, then attacked them with improvised spears made from broken metal pipes. When they tried to follow her into the ventilation system, she dropped heavy equipment on their heads. She fought for 6 straight hours, killing 2 more warriors and wounding several others. The Kethver finally caught her when she collapsed. From blood loss and exhaustion, she had been shot 3 times and cut in dozens of places, but she had never stopped fighting. Even as they dragged her away, she tried to bite them. Commander Zekthar received reports from the boarding parties. With growing confusion, the human ships had been easy to destroy, as expected, but the crews inside were fighting in ways that made no sense. They should have surrendered, he told Kaufman. Why do they continue fighting when they cannot win? Perhaps they do not understand. That they are defeated, his aide suggested. But Zekthar was not convinced. He had conquered many species, and he knew the look of defeated enemies. These humans were not fighting from ignorance. They were fighting because they chose to fight, even when death was certain. The reports from his warriors troubled him even more. Velka, a veteran of 20 campaigns, described humans who continued attacking even after receiving wounds that should have killed them. Gorthanel, one of the Empire's finest soldiers, admitted that a dying human had managed to damage his armor with nothing but a broken piece of metal. These humans are not like other species, Velka reported. They do not fight to win. They fight to hurt us as much as possible before they die. Captain Morrison watched the destruction of the Guardian from his bridge. He had lost 8 ships and over 2,000 crew members. The alien vessels had barely been scratched. Captain called his communications officer. "I'm receiving a transmission from the lead alien ship." "Put it through," Morrison replied. The voice that came through the speakers was deep and harsh, speaking accented but understandable English. "Human Commander, this is Zekthar of the Kethfer Empire. Your resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared but determined. None of them suggested giving up. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," he replied. "If you want our planet, you'll have to take it from us. You will not surrender." There was a long pause before Zekthar responded. "Your species interests me, human. We have conquered 47 worlds and all surrendered when they saw our power. Why do you choose death over submission?" Morrison thought about his wife and daughter back on Earth. He thought about all the people depending on him to protect them. The answer was simple. "Because it's our home," he said. "We don't abandon our home." The communication ended and the battle resumed. The remaining human ships scattered toward the inner solar system, with the Kethfer fleet following behind them. But something had changed in those first few hours of combat. The Kethfer had won the battle easily, as they always did. But for the first time in their history, victory felt different. The humans had shown them something they had never seen before, something that would haunt their dreams and change the way they thought about war. They had seen soldiers who chose to die rather than give up, who turned defeat into defiance, who found ways to hurt enemies even when they had no hope of winning. The Kethfer were still the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were no longer sure what strength really meant. 3 months had passed since the first battle, and Commander Zekthar was beginning to understand that this war was unlike any other. What should have been a quick conquest had turned into a nightmare that seemed to have no end. The Kethfer had landed on Earth expecting to find a conquered world within days. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to accept defeat. Every city became a battlefield. Every building became a fortress. Every human became a potential threat. Major Chris Bennett crouched in the ruins of what used to be downtown Chicago. The once proud city was now a wasteland of broken concrete and twisted metal. But it had become the perfect hunting ground for his resistance fighters. Bennett was a former army engineer who knew how to turn peaceful places into deadly traps. "Are the charges ready?" he whispered into his radio. Dr. Kate Sullivan checked. Explosive devices she had planted throughout the collapsed office building. 6 months ago, she'd been saving children's lives as a pediatrician. Now she spent her days learning how to take alien lives instead. "Ready when you are, Chris," she replied. "The whole building will come down when they enter the lobby." "What, Tony?" Martinez adjusted his position on the 3rd floor of a nearby structure. The former construction worker had spent years building things, and now he used that knowledge to destroy them. He knew exactly where to place charges to bring down buildings. In the most effective way, "I count 20 aliens moving toward the target building," Martinez reported through his radio. "They're moving in their usual formation for groups of 5 warriors each." Bennett smiled grimly. The Kethfer were powerful, but they were predictable. They had conquered so many worlds so easily that they had never learned to adapt their tactics. They always moved the same way, attacked the same targets, and expected the same results. But Earth was teaching them that the same tactics did not always work. The Kethfer warriors entered the building exactly as Bennett had predicted. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the empty halls as they searched for human survivors. They moved with confidence, knowing that their armor could protect them from most human weapons. They never suspected that the building itself was the weapon doctor. Sullivan triggered the explosives when all 20 warriors were inside. The building collapsed in a thunderous crash, burying the aliens under tons of concrete and steel. It was not enough to kill them, but it would take hours for them to dig themselves out. "Nice work, Kate," Bennett said. "That should keep them busy while we hit their supply convoy." The three humans moved through the ruins like ghosts, using secret passages and hidden tunnels that Bennett had prepared months earlier. They knew every inch of their destroyed city, while the aliens stumbled through unfamiliar territory. "Commander?" Zekthar received the report about the Chicago attack with growing frustration. His warriors were trapped under a collapsed building. The supply convoy had been destroyed, and the humans had disappeared without a trace. It was the 7th such attack this week. "How many warriors have we lost?" he asked Kaufman. 43. "Dead. Over 100 wounded," his aide replied. "The humans are using tactics we have never encountered before. They do not fight us directly. Instead, they attack and disappear, like ghosts that cannot be caught." Zekthar studied the tactical reports on his screen. The humans were using their own cities as weapons against the Kethvar. They had turned familiar streets into mazes, peaceful buildings into traps, and ordinary objects into deadly surprises. Worse, they seemed to know exactly how to hurt Kethvar warriors. Their attacks targeted the joints in alien armor, the weak points that most species never discovered. They used the planet's environment against the invaders in ways that showed deep understanding of both terrain and enemy weaknesses. "Send more troops to the Chicago sector," Zekthar ordered. "Double the patrols and increase security around our supply lines." But even as he gave the orders, he knew they would not be enough. The humans were not fighting a war in the traditional sense. They were fighting a different kind of conflict, one that the Kethvar did not understand. In the Amazon rainforest, Captain Morrison was discovering just how dangerous Earth could be for aliens who had not grown up there. His small team moved through the thick jungle, tracking a Kethvar patrol that had been hunting them for days. The aliens were strong and fast, but they were not prepared for the jungle. The thick humidity made their armor heavy and uncomfortable. Insects that were harmless to humans drove the Kethvar to distraction. Plants that humans avoided by instinct poisoned aliens who did not know better. Their slowing down reported. "Sergeant Maria Lopez, Morrison's tracker. The heat is getting to them." Morrison nodded. Humans had evolved on this planet. They knew how to survive in places that would kill most other species. The jungle that was trying to murder the Kethvar was home to the human soldiers. "Set up the ambush at the river crossing," Morrison ordered. "They'll have to come through there to reach the supply drop." His team of 12 soldiers spread out through the jungle, invisible among the trees and vines. They carried weapons captured from defeated Kethvar, along with improvised devices made from local materials. Morrison had learned that human creativity was more valuable than advanced technology. The Kethvar patrol approached the river crossing just as Morrison had predicted. The 8 warriors moved slowly, their breathing labored from the heat and humidity. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Veltha, scanned the jungle for signs of human activity. She found nothing. The humans were too well hidden. Morrison's ambush was perfect. His soldiers struck from 6 different directions at once, using the jungle itself to hide their positions. Explosive arrows fired from crossbows hit Kethvar warriors in their armor. Joints, poison darts from blowguns found gaps in their protection. Hidden pit traps caught aliens who tried to retreat. Within minutes, 3 Kethvar were dead, and the others were wounded. The survivors tried to call for help, but human jammers blocked their communications. They were alone in a hostile environment, facing an enemy they could not see or understand. Veltha had fought in dozens of battles on many different worlds, but she had never experienced anything like this. The jungle seemed alive with hidden threats. Every shadow could hide a human soldier. Every sound could signal another attack. "We need to retreat," she told her remaining warriors. "This place is not meant for us." But retreating through the jungle was even more dangerous than fighting. The humans followed them like hunting animals, striking whenever the aliens showed weakness. Beltha lost 2 more warriors to traps and ambushes before her patrol finally escaped. When she reported back, To her commanders, Veltha said something that no Kethfer had ever said before. "This planet is fighting us," she explained. "It's not just the humans, but the world itself. Every tree, every animal, every breath of air seems designed to kill us. We are not the apex predators here. We are prey." Her commanders did not believe her at first. How could a world be more dangerous than the nightmare landscapes of Kethfer space? But as more reports came in from other battlefields, they began to understand. The humans fought in Arctic conditions that froze Kethfer joints solid. They fought in deserts where the heat cooked aliens inside their armor. They fought in mountains where the thin air made it hard for Kethfer to breathe. Everywhere the aliens went, the planet itself seemed to work against them. Young Kethfer warriors began to have nightmares about Earth. They dreamed of humans who appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and disappeared like smoke. They dreamed of cities that became mazes, forests that became traps. And whether that became a weapon, the older warriors tried to maintain discipline, but even they were beginning to doubt. Kaufman, who had conquered 12 worlds, admitted privately that Earth was different from any battlefield he had known. "The humans are not just fighting us," he told Commander Zekthar. "They are teaching their planet to fight us too. Day we stay here, we become weaker while they become stronger." Zekthar looked out at the alien sky of this strange blue world. For the first time in his military career, he was not sure that the Kethfer would win. These humans had turned their entire planet into a weapon, and they wielded it with a skill that came from millions of years of evolution. The war that should have lasted days had become a struggle that might last years. With each passing battle, the Kethfer were learning a terrible truth. Being the strongest species in the galaxy meant nothing if you did not understand the battlefield. On Earth, the battlefield was everywhere, and the humans knew how to use every inch of it. The crash happened on a Tuesday morning over the mountains of Colorado. Sub-Commander Nethka watched her ship's engines fail as human missiles tore through the hull. She had been leading a patrol when Morrison's fighters ambushed them from behind. "Cloud cover. All crew to escape pods," she ordered, as her ship began to fall toward the rocky peaks below. Nethka was the last to leave her dying vessel. As her escape pod broke through Earth's atmosphere, she could see the burning wreckage of her ship scattered across the mountainside. Most of her crew was dead. The survivors would be captured or killed by human forces within hours. Her pod crashed hard into a pine forest, throwing her against the metal walls. Pain shot through her left arm where the bone had snapped. Green blood seeped through cracks in her armor. She tried to activate her emergency beacon, but the device had been crushed in the impact. For the first time in her life, Nethka was completely alone on an enemy world. She struggled out of the wreckage and looked around at the strange forest. The trees were tall and green, nothing like the twisted metal plants of her homeworld. The air smelled of pine needles and earth instead of sulfur and acid. It would have been beautiful if she had not been surrounded by enemies who wanted her dead. Nethka began walking down the mountain, hoping to find shelter before human search teams located her. Her broken arm made every step painful, and her armor felt heavy in Earth's lighter gravity. After several hours, she collapsed beside a small stream, too weak to continue. That was where Dr. Richard Hayes found her. Hayes was a country doctor who lived in a small town at the base of the mountains. He had been hiking when he heard the ship crash and came to investigate. He expected to find human survivors who needed medical help. Instead, he discovered an 8-foot-tall alien warrior lying unconscious beside his favorite fishing spot. Most people would have run away or called the military. Hayes pulled out his medical kit and began examining the injured alien. Nethka woke up to find human hands gently checking her broken arm. She jerked away and reached for her weapon, but Hayes held up his empty hands in a peaceful gesture. "Easy. There," he said in his calm doctor's voice. "You're hurt pretty bad. That arm needs immediate attention, or you might lose it." Nethka stared at him in confusion. This human was offering to help her. It made no sense. She was a Kethfer warrior, part of the force that was trying to conquer his planet. Why would he risk his life to save an enemy? Why? She managed to ask in broken English. Hayes was surprised that she could speak his language, but he answered simply, "Because you need help." The doctor spent the next hour carefully setting Nethka's broken bone and bandaging her wounds. Were gentle and professional, treating her with the same care he would show any patient. When he finished, he offered her water and food from his backpack. "The military will be looking for you," Hayes explained. "I need to get you somewhere safe." Before they arrive, he helped the injured alien to her feet and led her to his truck parked on a nearby mountain road. Nethka was amazed that he was helping her escape rather than turning her over to his own forces. No Kethker would ever do such a thing for a human prisoner. Hayes drove her to his small clinic in town, arriving after dark when the streets were empty. He helped her inside and settled her in a back room where she would not be seen by other patients. "This is Betty Clark," he said, introducing a middle-aged nurse who was waiting for them. "She's going to help me take care of you." Betty looked nervous about treating an alien, but she followed Hayes's instructions without question. Together, they worked through the night to repair the damage to Nethka's arm. The surgery took 18 hours, with both humans refusing to rest until they were sure their patient would recover. During her recovery, Nethka observed human behavior that challenged everything she thought she knew about the species. Hayes checked on her several times each day, bringing food and medicine. He asked about her pain levels and adjusted her treatment accordingly. He treated her not as a prisoner or an enemy, but as someone who deserved care and respect. Betty was initially afraid of the large alien, but she gradually warmed up to her patient. She brought books and magazines to help pass the time. She explained human customs and answered questions about Earth culture. She even shared pictures of her grandchildren, talking about them with obvious love and pride. "Why do you help me?" Nethka asked Hayes during one of his visits. "I am your enemy, and my people are trying to destroy your world." Hayes was quiet for a moment before answering. "You're not destroying anything right now. You're just a person who got hurt and needs help. That's all I see when I look at you." The concept was foreign to Nethka. Kethfer society was built on strength and dominance. Enemies were obstacles to be destroyed, not individuals to be helped. The idea of showing kindness to someone who could not fight back seemed like weakness. But as days passed, she began to see that Hayes's kindness was actually a different kind of strength. He risked his own safety to help her. He used his skills to heal rather than hurt. He chose compassion over fear, even when dealing with someone from a species that was trying to kill his people. On her 5th day in the clinic, Nethka witnessed something that changed her understanding of humans forever. She heard shouting outside and looked through the window to see a building on fire across the street. People were running toward the flames, not away from them. "What are they doing?" she asked Betty. "There might be people trapped inside," the nurse explained. "They're trying to help." Nethka watched in amazement as humans formed a chain to pass buckets of water toward the fire. A man named Sam Johnson climbed a ladder to rescue a family. From the 2nd floor, risking his own life to save strangers. When firefighters arrived, ordinary citizens continued to help however they could. The most shocking moment came when the burning building partially collapsed. Trapping a Kethfer warrior who had been injured in an earlier battle, the alien had been hiding in the basement, too hurt to escape when the fire started, instead of leaving their enemy to die. Several humans rushed into the dangerous building to pull him to safety. Sam Johnson and 2 other men carried the unconscious warrior outside, then helped the medical team treat his burns. "Why did they save him?" Nethka asked in wonder. "Because he needed saving," Betty replied, as if the answer was obvious. That night, Nethka lay awake thinking about what she had seen. These humans possessed something that Kethfer culture had never developed. They could look at an enemy and see a person in need of help. They chose to build and heal and protect, even when it put them at risk. She thought about her own people and how they approached conquered worlds. The Kethfer took what they wanted and destroyed what they did not need. They showed no mercy to the weak and no kindness to enemies. They were strong in the ways that her culture understood. But they were missing something important that humans seemed to possess naturally. Meanwhile, Commander Zekthar was struggling with his own doubts about the war. The death of his son Velthak in a human ambush should have filled him with rage and determination to destroy every human on the planet. Instead, he found himself haunted by the reports from that battle. According to the survivors, human soldiers had tried to save wounded Kethfer after the fighting ended. They had risked their own lives to pull injured aliens from burning vehicles. Some humans had died attempting these rescues, giving their lives for enemies who would have shown them no such mercy. "It makes no sense," Zekthar told Kaufman. "Why would they help us after we killed their friends?" "Perhaps it is a trick," his aide suggested. "Some kind of psychological warfare." Zekthar did not think it was a trick. He had seen the reports and spoken to the wounded warriors who had been saved by human hands. Their stories were too consistent and too detailed to be lies. These humans were fighting a war unlike any the Kethver had ever experienced. They killed when they had to, but they also saved lives when they could. They destroyed enemy targets, but they also protected civilians and helped the wounded. They combined ruthless efficiency with unexpected compassion in ways that confused and disturbed their enemies. For the first time in his long military career, Zekthar began to wonder. If the Kethver definition of strength was incomplete, his people had conquered the galaxy through superior firepower and ruthless tactics, but they had never learned to see enemies as anything other than obstacles to destroy. The humans were showing them a different way to be strong, one that included the courage to help others even at personal cost. It was a kind of strength that the Kethver had never encountered before, and it was changing the nature of the war in ways that neither side had expected. The solar storm came without warning, striking the outer solar system with deadly radiation that could kill any living being caught in space. Captain Morrison was leading the last human fleet toward Jupiter when the emergency alert came through. His communications system. "All ships. This is Morrison. Solar storm approaching. Massive radiation levels detected. All vessels take immediate shelter." The human ships scrambled toward the dark side of Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon.
Ow.
But they were not alone in their desperate flight from the deadly storm. 3 Kethver vessels were also racing toward the same shelter, their crews equally vulnerable to the killing radiation. Commander Zekthar watched the human ships on his main screen as both fleets approached the moon. For months, they had been enemies locked in bitter warfare. Now they faced a common threat that could destroy them all. Commander called Kaufman from his station. "The radiation levels are rising faster than predicted. Our shields cannot protect us much longer." Zekthar looked at the tactical display showing both fleets. The humans were closer to safety, but their ships were damaged from recent battles. The Kethver vessels were in better condition, but farther from shelter. Neither group would survive if they continued to fight each other. Morrison came to the same conclusion at the same moment. "Open a channel to the Kethver flagship," he ordered. The alien commander's face appeared on Morrison's screen. For a long moment, the two warriors studied each other across the void of space. They'd been trying to kill each other for months, but now they needed each other to survive. "Commander Zekthar," Morrison said, "I propose a temporary ceasefire. This storm will kill us all if we don't work together." Zekthar was quiet for several seconds before responding. "What do you suggest, Captain Morrison?" "Your ships have stronger engines. Ours have better radiation shielding. If we combine our resources, we might all survive this." It was a dangerous gamble. Working together meant sharing technology and trusting enemies who had been killing each other hours earlier. "But the alternative was death for everyone," agreed, Zekthar replied. "Send us your shield specifications. We will share our engine data with you." The next few hours became a desperate race against time and radiation. Human engineer Carlos Rivera found himself working alongside Kethver technician Gorthvel to modify their ship's systems. Despite the language barrier and their species' mutual hatred, the two engineers discovered they shared a common understanding of technology and problem-solving. "Your plasma conduits are more efficient than ours," Rivera admitted as they worked on the Kethver ship's shield array. "But your radiation filters are much better designed," Gorthvel replied through a translation device. "Our engineers never thought to use crystalline matrices for filtering." Working together, they created a hybrid shield system that was stronger than either species could have built alone. The human creativity combined with Kethver precision produced solutions that neither group had imagined possible. Dr. Lisa Park coordinated the technical exchange between the fleets, translating engineering data and helping both sides understand each other's systems. She discovered that Kethfer and human mathematics were remarkably similar. Despite being developed on different worlds by completely different species, "It's amazing," she told Morrison during a brief break. "We approach problems differently, but we arrive at the same fundamental truths. Their physics equations are almost identical to ours." As the radiation storm reached its peak, both fleets, huddled together in the shadow of Europa, Human and Kethfer ships formed a protective formation, their combined shields creating a barrier against the deadly energy sweeping through space. Morrison and Zekthar maintained constant communication, coordinating their efforts to keep everyone alive. They shared power between ships, redistributed supplies to vessels running low on life support, and worked together to repair damaged systems. "Your ship is losing atmosphere," Morrison reported to one of the Kethfer vessels. "We're sending repair teams to help." Human technicians spacewalked across the void to patch holes in alien hulls. Kethfer engineers shared their advanced tools with human crews who needed them. Species that had been trying to exterminate each other now worked desperately to keep each other alive. During the long hours of waiting, something remarkable happened. Crews from both sides began talking to each other over the communication channels. Language barriers made conversation difficult, but curiosity overcame hostility. "What is your homeworld like?" asked Lieutenant Ellen Walsh, a young human pilot. "Hot and dangerous," replied Veltha, the Kethfer warrior who had survived the Amazon ambush, "but beautiful in its own way." "What about Earth?" "Green and blue," Walsh answered. "Lots of water and trees. Sometimes I miss the smell of rain." These simple conversations revealed something both species had forgotten during the war. Behind the armor and weapons, they were all people with homes, families, and dreams. They had more in common than they had differences. When the solar storm finally passed, both fleets were intact. The cooperation had saved hundreds of lives on both sides. As they prepared to separate, Morrison and Zekthar faced a difficult choice. They could return to war, or they could build on what they had learned, Commander Morrison said during their final communication. "We've proven we can work together when we have to. We don't have to be enemies." Zekthar looked around. His bridge at his officers, many of them had spent the crisis working closely with humans. They had seen firsthand that these supposed enemies were not so different from themselves. "Perhaps you are right, Captain," he replied, "but ending this war will not be simple. Both our governments want victory, not peace." The breakthrough came. From an unexpected source, Subcommander Nethka, who had been treated by Dr. Hayes and witnessed human compassion, requested permission to speak to both commanders. "I have seen things during my time on Earth that changed my understanding of strength," she told them. "The humans showed me kindness when they could have shown cruelty. They saved my life when they could have let me die. They taught me that true strength is not just about the ability to destroy, but also about the choice to build and protect." Her words resonated with both Morrison and Zekthar. They had seen the same thing during the crisis, when cooperation proved more powerful than conflict. "What are you proposing?" Zekthar asked. "Test," Nethka replied. "Let me return to the Kethfer High Command and tell them what I have learned. Give me the chance to show them that there is another way to be strong." Morrison was skeptical. "How do we know this isn't a trick?" "Because Nethka said simply, I am asking to give up my military rank and request asylum with humanity. Not because I fear my own people, but because I want to learn more about yours." Her request shocked everyone. No Kethfer had ever voluntarily joined another species. It was unprecedented in their entire history, but Nethka was serious. She had seen something in human culture that her own people lacked, and she wanted to understand it better. Her testimony to the Kethfer High Command carried weight because she was known as a loyal warrior, not a traitor or coward. 6 months later, first human Kethfer joint colony was established on a neutral world in unclaimed space. Morrison and Zekthar, former enemies, worked together as co-administrators of the SHO. The colony became a symbol of what was possible when two species chose cooperation over conflict. Human creativity combined with Kethfer's strength produced innovations that neither group could have achieved alone. They built cities that were beautiful and functional, developed technologies that helped both civilizations, and created a society based on mutual respect rather than dominance. The transformation was not easy. Many on both sides opposed the peace, preferring the familiar patterns of war to the uncertain challenges of cooperation. But the example set by the colony gradually spread throughout both civilizations. The Kethfer discovered that their reputation as the galaxy's mightiest warriors was enhanced, not diminished, by their willingness to choose peace when it served a greater purpose. Other species began to see them not just as conquerors, but as protectors who could be trusted with power. Humanity gained something equally valuable. They learned that they were not alone in the universe, and that even the most fearsome enemies could become allies when approached with courage and compassion. The war that had begun with destruction ended with creation. Two species that had nearly destroyed each other instead transformed the galaxy, proving that the greatest strength was not the power to conquer, but the wisdom to choose a better path.